Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So I thought I'd pop by and we'd continue with some of our simple makes. So, excuse me, in my previous video, we created this journal page. So I thought we'd still use these products, but do them in a different colour scheme. So I'm going to continue with the products, but just to show that you can use a different colour scheme and it can look completely different. So what I'm going to do is, I can't remember how many times I've touched this page, so I'm just going to wipe over with my anti-static bag. Now I'm using a journal that I got from Amazon, and it's, oh, I've got one that isn't unwrapped. Yes, this is the one. It's a moleskin one, and it's a watercolor album, about a 200 GSM, but each page is sort of watercolor, so it takes sort of water techniques, etc., really well. And it's just over 5 inches by just over 8 inches for each page. My pages have got texture to them, so just be aware that when you've got that texture, obviously it can affect your stamping a little bit. So I'm going to use my Versamark ink again, and I'm going to take the stamp that I just adore at the moment as well. I'm going to be using the Artsy Alphas and Numbers stamp set TE16. I'm trying to remember to place the plastic back, only because it saves me hunting for them. So in our previous page, we sort of did it mainly down this side here. So I'm just sort of going for this, I think, round about the centre area. And as we did before, I'm going to use my Versamark ink, but I'm not going to be too precise about where I place the text and how hard I press. I'm just going to press with my fingers, just so it's a little bit more random. And just like we did before, we're just going to add the embossing powder. So I'm just grabbing a piece of scrap paper. It's just a little bit difficult to see when it's white on white, so I like to just add the embossing and I can see where I'm going with the design. Let's just tip that off. Just give that a little sort of flick. And I just love how it doesn't matter how you stamp this stamp, it just looks fantastic. Even just on its own, it just looks amazing. So let me just see if you can, there you can just see it there. It just looks brilliant every time you stamp. And if there's a little bit of embossing that you don't want, just use a paintbrush and you can make it even more random. So we're going to add a little bit more of that stamp. I've got brushes in the way. It's all. And I just place the stamp down. I'm not even pressing. Then I can just press with my fingers. But I don't press too hard, because you don't want to squish it too much, because then you don't get a nice crisp image. There's just something about this stamp. It's one of them stamps I don't think I'm ever going to tire with. And sometimes your journal pages can be a little bit more pared back. You don't have to have them too detailed if you don't wish. I'm just going to add a little bit to the top. Oh, I've just put my ink pad upside down. Let's just add a little bit of that nice random feel now to that. Put that lid on because I'm always prone to knocking it over. There we go. So now I can just heat that page. I'll just give my heat tool a little bit of time just to heat up, just so that I'm not wafting cold air for no reason. So we'll just give that a bit of time. But when you find a technique that you enjoy, if you don't want to move on from that, try different colour schemes. It makes it look completely different and it gives it a whole different feel. There we go. We'll just heat that up. And again, it doesn't matter if your pages curl, because when you close the book, they will soon flatten out. And I bet you're all out enjoying this beautiful weather at last. Makes a nice change, doesn't it? There we go. Once it starts to change, you can move your heat tool down just so that you don't heat the same area. Just give that it's a habit of mine. I want to just move the heat tool like this. There's no need to do that, but it's a habit I've got into that I just keep sort of wafting the heat tool. Can't help myself. Just down to the last few bits now. I think we've done that. So we've now got a lovely glossy base to work on, just so that you can see that there. Just see the glossiness of that. Let's move that up. Ooh. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my colour. And I'm going to start. I'm only going to use 3 colours. I'm going to use mustard seed, picked raspberry and twisted citron. And when those 2 colours meet, you'll get an orange as well. So I'm going to start with the mustard seed. So let's take some of that mustard seed and just add a little bit of the colour. Do love mustard seed. And then I'm going to use picked raspberry. I'm using my large brushes, so I'm going to use picked raspberry. Or shall I use the green first? No, let's use a little bit of picked raspberry. And because I want to add more depth of colour, I'm holding the brushes down here rather than here if I want to add a light layer of colour. So where the pink goes into the yellow, you're going to get those sort of orange tones. So you sort of get a twofer there. You get your pink and your orange tones. I'm then going to add some twisted citron. That brush is slightly smaller. My twisted citron is well used. So I just need to get a good application of ink. Nice rich colours. And then I can see from that I want to go back in and add some of the mustard seed. Oh, do you know, just making up colours. And then I want to use a little bit of the picked raspberry. Okay, And I'm just going to, I don't know whether I want to use two colours. Can you just bear with me a second? I just want to run and get something. Now, you've got some lovely bright colours here that we can work with. And I know most of you'll know that Tim Holtz has brought out some Distress Spritzer bottles. I've got these in the shop now. I've actually just ordered some more as well, but I've got some in the shop. And I think with these, I think of them a little bit differently. So obviously a lot of you think of Tim Holtz and you think distress and grunge and brown, but I think it's good because the distress range has got a lot of bright colours in the range, and I think what this does is, Tracy can't open a bottle, what this does is it adds another dimension to your projects. So if you want to sort of lift them a bit with a little bit of shimmer, which I can't get it to, I can't even get the wrapping off, never mind get the shimmer working. Now what you need to do is just shake until the ball bearing's working there, so that the the shimmer and the shimmer then is sort of mixed and suspended in the liquid. So you just want to just get that and give it sort of a good shake. I mean, normally I like to shake like this, side to side, just so that I don't bring everything up to the bottle. So just give that a really good shake, and then you can see the shimmer. So what I was thinking was I would add a little bit of shimmer to these. Now I'm just going to cover my area just in case we get a little bit of a bloom. And what I mean that is, you know, a little bit of spray that sprays away from your page. So I'm going to add a little, but what I'm doing is I'm sort of making sure I've got some of those splatters. Now I'm going to leave that like that, and then I'm going to add some of the twisted citron. There we go. You really need to get that ball bearing going, just so that you know that that shimmer is suspended sort of in the liquid. Now when you've used them, give the top a little bit of a wipe. What have I got here? Yeah, it is twisted citron. Now just give that a bit of a wipe. Now you can dry these with your heat tool if you wish, or you can let them dry naturally. I'm going to dry with my heat tool. What I do like is there's not too much bloom sort of spreading everywhere else. Some nice control. Now I can't waft that too much because you don't want to affect the embossing. So what I'm going to do, we can use the same kitchen roll, can't we? And I will lift it up when it's a little bit dry. But what I'd say about this is, you know, you get some products and they're sort of in your face shimmer. This is sort of more classy. I mean, I'm a big advocate for the distress products anyway, because I love how these colours mix with the whole distress range. I love how you've got a picked raspberry spritzer, you've got a picked raspberry ink, an oxide. So I like how they all work. So just give your little spritzer a little wipe. Just get into good habits and just give that a bit of a wipe. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spritz my kitchen roll with a little bit of water. And then I'm just going to dab just to lift some of that ink, just so that we've got the whiteness of this. Just lifting that a little bit. I do like that pink. So I'm just lifting that a little bit. And then I can just add a little bit more of the pink. And if I just press lightly, I can get just some splatters so that it's like sort of splattering. Just gives it a... I don't have to press. If you press hard, then obviously you get a full-on spritz. Don't forget to wipe. Don't forget to wipe. And I'm personally going to keep my lids nice and clean as well, just to help everything along the way. And I like to shake side to side. I think it's better rather than up and down. So I can just, now I'm going to lift this up, see if we can sort of grab some of that shimmer. Let me see if we can, there you go. Can you see the shimmer there on the right hand side here? And you can see some of that pink shimmer. And it actually does give another, you can see there where it's wet, it actually gives another dimension to the colours. So this is sort of the flat oxide colour. And it does give another dimension to that. And I believe that even when you add it to the browns, it'll just give that another dimension, I think. I think it'll look really nice and give it another dimension. And now I'm thinking I want a bit of a yellow one. So I'm now going to fetch a yellow one. Bear with me. There we go. So I've got a yellow. Why I didn't just put them in my room anyway, I do not know. So now I've got to take the packaging off. Makes for an interesting video watching somebody take packaging off something. Really riveting. But I'd just like to just break it there, just in case I need to get that lid off. There we go. Oh, strength, Tracy. I don't have any. Come on. That's it. There we go. Might as well get it all off now. That's it. So then we can give that a bit of a shake as well. Now, if you do exactly what Tim did, where he placed the colour on one side, the natural colour, oxide or ink, and then you put this spritz over the top, you really can see the shimmer. So this is fossilised amber. And sometimes I just tap the base just to get that ball bearing going. Excuse me. And really, all I'm doing really is I'm testing the colours. Who am I kidding? You see, there's something about the yellows for me. It just adds that brightness to a page. I just love the brightness. So I'll just give this a little bit of a waft. and you've sort of got that translucency about it, the way it layers. So it layers, when I'm looking at it now, I've not watched the Tim Holtz video all the way through. I've literally watched about 10 minutes so far. But for me, when I look at it now, it's got a translucency about it. So you've got those oxide colours underneath, and you can still see them with the shimmer on top, which is quite nice. I quite like that, how you can still see that on top. So let's just give... So I'm just wafting because I can't dry too much, because we don't want to affect that embossing. But if you love your bright colours, there you go, just so that you can see that. That was the fossilised amber. Now, these are going to be perfect for Christmas. So I'll be interested to use some of these products, the Distress Spritzes, with some of my products coming out. So I'll be quite interested to see those. But you can still see sort of everything underneath, even though, like where I've got the bigger splatters, obviously you see less underneath. But where I've got that fine spray, I can still see underneath. Right, so what I'm going to do now is just take my kitchen roll, which I can't seem to think what it's called, and I'm just going to lift just a bit of that colour, just so that I've got that whiteness, which is what we want. There we go. And you can even see the shimmer on your kitchen towel. So that is beautiful. So I think I want a darker colour. Do you know, I always want a darker something when I'm halfway through a video. And I know what I want, but finding it. Aged mahogany is what I'm looking for. But of course, oh, there it is. Why is the colour always in the drawer that you don't want it to be in? So I just love that. So we've got some nice brightness. Just some lovely bright colours. And now if we add the water over the top, that should affect the oxide layers. So we'll just give that a little bit of time before we sort of blot that. And my YouTube videos, sometimes they're not about rushing, it's about just taking my time and having a little play. So let's just give that some time, just before we just give a dab. That's it. And I've still got some bleached out areas on the oxide layers. I will just lift it up so that you can see. Just so you can see, I've got these bleached out areas on there as well. So now I'm going to take my other stamp that I just adore, which is the Background Elements TE11. We'll just grab our stamp. And there's just something about this allows me to just add a little bit of detail. So let's just take that scrap paper again. Actually, that might be nice with the pink. What was it? Like yeah, let's try that one. So I'm going to take Hawthorn Rose Versafine Clair, and I'm just going to add a few little details. And what I can do is, like I normally do, is just press very gently. Oh yes, look at this. I love it when stamps go together. So I've stamped this here and it pushes the background layers into the background. Just love that. And I love the fact that the text stamp is just the right amount of depth, not too much. There we go. So I'm just adding the text sort of here and there. Let's add, oh, that was good, Tracy. So this is one of the new colours, the Hawthorn Rose. There we go. So just lovely the way that acts. And then I think, is my baby wipe quite... My baby wipe isn't very damp, so I can just wipe away anything that I don't want on the embossing. And it just wipes that bit away, just keeping some of that white embossing for us. Right, so what we're going to do then is we're going to take our stencil. And I think we're going to have some low-tack tape. Now what you need to remember is we've got a really sort of damp page here. So you need to make sure that that low-tack tape, I use Scotch, but I still reduce some of that tackiness. Doesn't matter whether you're using washi tape or whatever. I'm just going to reduce some of that tackiness so that it doesn't tear my page. There we go. You can just mask it off with copy paper if you wish. Just trying to keep this in the page. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is build my layers of colour. So I need one of my fine brushes. So we've got a really fine brush there. And what I'm going to do is just, I've got that many bits of paper, just apply the picked raspberry. I take the picked raspberry. And we're just going to add picked raspberry. Now I need to add layers of that colour. Don't sort of rush the process. You want to add layers. So that's our picked raspberry. I then want to go in with a little bit of aged mahogany, and I'm going to use one of my finer brushes. And even though it's a finer brush, I'm just making sure that I've got a reasonable amount of ink. And I'm going to start off the page. So a lot of the ink is on the stencil. So what that means is that all this ink on the stencil, you could then put on another piece of card. So we can then go back to the picked raspberry. And let's add a little bit of the picked raspberry again. And we can even add a little dab of the mustard seed. There we go. And we can easily lift it and put it back if we're not happy. And then we can take our kitchen roll. You only need a finger's width really. Just spritz with water. And then just lift just so that you've still got your white area showing. Hold your stencil in place. That's it. And you can just see if you're getting enough of an impression. And don't worry, I can see that. Let me show you, just so you can see that. Now, what I'm going to show you is how you can just give that a little bit more depth, right? Even though I've just taken the stencil off, because if I don't take the stencil off, I can't show you things. So I need to show you different things. Now, I know my low tack tape is low tack, so now I don't have to worry. So we've got that on there, and where? And now I've got a piece of cut and dry foam sponge. You can even use one of your blending tools. And what I'm going to do is just, can you see I've got most of it on the stencil. So most of that is actually on the stencil. Let's add a little bit more of that. And then I can just lift. There we go. So we just get a little bit more definition, but we will add more definition in a short while. We're just adding the florals at the moment. So let's just wipe this. Now, you could have spritzed that with water and then added that to another background. So I'm then going to add another one there. Just place that down. And then I'm going to begin with my layer of picked raspberry again. So just add, this is really sort of to give me my markings in a way, I suppose, of where the florals are going. What time is it? Oh, the time goes quick, doesn't it? So I'm just adding my picked raspberry and then going to use my aged mahogany. And I've not added any more ink to that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of the yellow. And then just, I've still got that bit of wet. Just lift that colour. And then add a little bit of the Nocturne ink. So this is Nocturne ink on a piece of cut and dry blending foam. There's our second floral, and we're going to add more depth to that. So I want you a little bit down, maybe there. So again, we'll start with our picked raspberry. And really, you should sort of wipe your stencil, especially if you've got that black on there. You don't really want to leave that on, so that you can blend your pink, and you're getting pink. So just, you're going to add more depth to these, so don't worry too much. I'm then going to add the aged mahogany, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the mustard seed. Then I can take a little bit of the VersaFine Clair Nocturne. And we've got our florals. Now, I didn't wipe that one because there is no embossing there. So let's just wipe our stencil. You can use hand sanitizer, should you wish. Right, we're going to add a little bit more definition now to our florals. Let's move these all out of the way. And now I'm going to add some of my pencils. So I would like, there's that pink and maybe sort of a plummy. What colour, what are they classing you as? That one. Do you like I'm talking to myself? I think we'll have a bit of yellow. You have to put up with me talking to myself. It's just me. Right. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit more dimension to our florals. So I'm going to start with the Crimson Lake. And I'm just going to add a little bit of the Crimson Lake, which is PC925. Just a little bit more dimension, depth, just to those florals, just with my Prismacolors. Let's go in and just add a little bit more. Don't press on too hard, you just want a little bit of colour, just to add, just to give a little bit more depth. I do love adding a little bit more depth to the project. Just adding this is like my darkest colour in the pencils. I'm just adding a little bit of that. Just around that edge, which is the Crimson Lake. I'll then go to my hot pink, PC9, oh good grief, because of the light, 993. You'd think I'd know these colours off by heart, but I don't. So I'm coming into the darkest colour with that hot pink and just giving another layer of that colour. And obviously I've got embossing on here, but that doesn't mean I can't just add little bits of that colour to the design. And it really sort of lifts those florals. If you look at our other page, we actually cut the florals out, but we're making this one look completely different. So just add that pink, and then I'm going to add a little bit of, is that creamy yellow? Oh good grief, Tracy cannot read that. Let's have a look. I think it says creamy yellow, PC916. Your guess is as good as mine. But I want to add a little bit of that sort of punchy sort of yellow, just sort of in this central area here. Just adds a little bit of a punch, and it's all flat, so it's lovely. So I'm going to come back in and I'm going to press a little bit harder now, just with the darkest colour, which I forget every time, Crimson Lake, just to add a little bit more darkness with that Crimson Lake on all the flowers. Just to add a little bit more. And it's lovely and textural because you've got that embossing on there. So I'm just adding the darkest colour, just a little bit more depth. Then I'm going to go to the hot pink and come in to the darkest colour and just add a little bit of that pink. And then we'll add our yellow just to give that little bit of a zesty touch. Just gives that a little bit more oomph. I do love it where the florals go over the text. So I need my Inktense pencil. And just to give those a little bit of a shadow, we're going to go all the way around. Just to add a little bit of depth to those. So just around sort of this edge here, just going down and then around the edge, just to give a little bit more definition and to show that you can have definition without cutting out as well. So let's grab that water brush. We'll have a piece of kitchen roll on one side, just in case we just want to get rid of some of that colour. And then we can just blend this out. Now, as you blend it out, if it's too dark, just blend the edges out to nothing. So if it gets too dark, blend the edges out to nothing, and then you can just dab. Take off the excess, and then you can just blend that, and you can just dab the page a little bit. So again, go around just to give a little bit of definition. Want some clean water just to blend that out. Again, you can just dab so that it isn't too much. But when you see the page in real life, I mean, things are always better in real life anyway. You see the depth. Just looks wonderful with the depth. I just want to check something because I'm umming and ahhing. Will I want? So if I put texture paste, yes. So I'm then going to use, excuse me, my snippet stencil Fronds. So this is my 4x4 stencil. And I'm just going to add some texture paste. And I was just going to say, which I hope I've left out, which I have, miracles, miracles. Let's move this out the way. So just any texture paste that you wish to use, whatever is your preferred choice. I'm going to faff And with stencils that have got fine detail, I don't tend to keep scraping over. What I do is I use a good thick layer. It's beautiful. And then I'll just pick up my excess that I can just place back in the pot while I do it again. I want to do the same thing again, but I need to clean that off so that I don't get any extra. Now, what you could do is you could wipe this onto another piece of card and you'll still get that texture paste fern in the background. Works quite nicely for another idea for a background. So it's a good idea if you want to just add that to another piece of white card. So I then want to add, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to dry this a little bit. Let's just clean that up. And what I'm doing is I'm going to dry this a little bit, this fern, so that it forms a little bit of a skin, so that it's just hardened a little bit, just so that it forms that skin. Now, if you get too close, it's going to bubble. You might want that, you might like the texture, but that's not what I want at the moment. I just want it so that it's not so sloppy, in other words, just so it's hardened a little bit. And then, yeah, just pick up some more texture paste. Let me just, there we go. Now I'm not going to faff or press too much. I've literally just applied that. Now, if you do it that way, I'll show you what happens if you don't keep scraping over your stencil, the difference. Just bear with me. Let's clean our implements. So we'll just clean our palette knife. Can't get my words out. We'll just clean that palette knife. And then, have I got a piece of scrap paper I can just show you? Let's have a look. I'll do it on black card so you can see better. Let's just move that out of the way. But if you wanted to, you can then take a piece of white card. You can then just use your finger. And you could then spritz with your distress spritz. But you can create another background with your leftover stencil. We'll actually just have a look at the spritz on black card. I don't know whether it goes on black card, but let's have a look. I always think it's good to sort of test things yourself. It's good to watch videos. It's also good to test things yourself. Or see some, watch somebody that's given things a little bit of a test. Obviously this has got loads of wet texture paste on now. Let's just spritz and see what we get on black card, just out of interest. I don't want to spritz my journal, so we'll just take that out of the way. Let's just spritz the black card. So that was the picked raspberry. Let's have a look at the fossilised amber. And then let's have a look at the twisted citron. I'm not doing anything specific. I'm just spritzing it on there. Mainly because I'm looking at it, because if you look at these, I've got a few little. Let's just dry. I mean, obviously, drying it, if you let it dry naturally, that's far better. But let's dry it with our heat tool. Just so we haven't got that all the way over. And you see, now Christmas cards, with this on the black card, I've got some, hopefully some products coming out. Stencils and things. But for Christmas, let's just leave that like that now, because you don't want to watch me drying forever. But look now. Look at that shimmer. How it mixes there. And the green. On black card, I'd say that's pretty yummy, because I could spritz a whole... Where have I? Oh, I'm going to be here just faffing. So I could spritz... I'm going to keep this piece of card for when my products arrive, I think. So I could take the pink. So that's spritzing, and that you can do a little bit like that. Just press it lightly and you get bigger splatters. Okay, so we've got the pink on the black there. We've then got the twisted citron. I think the twisted citron's rather yummy on black card. And then the fossilized amber. Let me just dry this now and see if it changes the quality of the shimmer. This is me getting sidetracked. Let's see when we dry it if it changes the quality of that shimmer if we dry it with our heat tool. If we don't do these things, we don't know. So I've got these in the shop, and I've got some more coming as well early next week. So I'm drying this now properly with a heat tool. So I want to see what happens. And I think I'm rather liking this on black card. I very much like this on black card. Now, can we overlay it? Can we sort of add again on the top? So let's go again. Let's add the twisted citron. We'll go back and we'll wipe our... Okay, so let's just put that on one side, and let's just give these a wipe, just to get into good habits. I'm not leaving sort of any liquid in there. Right, let's give this another dry. Now, could you imagine stamping one of my florals on there, maybe white embossed? So emboss one of my white flowers on there. So emboss, so stamp, say, New Beginnings floral on there, emboss it in white, cut it out, and then you've got that flower coloured and shimmy. Just love it. I'm not usually a huge, big shimmer girl, but these are sort of, I don't know, they've got more of a vintage feel to them for me. But I'd say on black card that is stunning, absolutely stunning. Anyway, what were we doing? A journal page. Good grief, that's in our way now. But yes, just love that. And we weren't doing anything like that, we were doing this. So what I wanted to show you is that if you don't keep scraping over your stencil, you get more depth in your texture paste. So that's what I do. And I do like the, there we go. I do like that sort of this next to the rest of it. I think I'm just going to give that a little bit of a dry, just so that it hardens off. The one on the right has hardened off, but the one on the left isn't. So just remember, don't close your page until that's hardened off. So just hardening that off a bit, so I'm not tempted to dip my hands in there, because I just know what I'm like. Right, so let's have a look at our sentiments. What have we got? I like the Find Joy in the Ordinary from TE14, which is that one. So we just need a little scrap of white card, which I probably won't have. I've normally got huge pieces of card, not just a little scrap. Told you, huge piece, never just a tiny little scrap at all. So we'll then take our sentiment, Find Joy in the Ordinary, place that back, because then we don't lose that then. There we go. So I'm just going to, let's just leave that sentiment on one side at the moment. Let me just give this brush a little bit of a clean, just so I can use it again. And I want my Winsor & Newton gouache. There we go. Let's move that sentiment out of the way. And then I can just add a little touch of the white. I'm going to lean my hands in this, it's obvious. Just add a little touch of white. Just here and there to just give a little bit of brightness. And then I'm just going to water that down a little bit. Preferably no big blobs, which there are. Let's just start it off on there. And then you can just add a few little splatters with your gouache. Obviously you can use your Posca pen, but just be aware the Posca pen does pick up the colour from the Distress Oxides. That's just natural because there's moisture. Look at the pigment in that. So there's so much pigment in that gouache. How many times have I cleaned the brush now? You need to make sure that you give that a good clean. I'm then going to cut the sentiment out. Where has the time gone? Let's just bring my chair a bit closer. And I'm going to cut it up this time. Just so I can spread that wording out a little bit. There we go. I'm not going to add a black edge. I can just use my Inktense pencil to do that. I like to have a little bit of a play around. That's better. And what you can see with my composition is I'm sort of keeping it here, the main focal part of the image. I'm not really sort of dotting it around everywhere. So let's add that to our page. And we'll have another look at the black piece of card to see if the shimmer has diminished at all from the spritz. There we go. And then we're just going to add our little bit of shading underneath, which is always far easier when everything is dry and you're not trying to do something when it's all wet. So just blend that out just to give that little bit of shading. I'm going to add a few splatters. Can't miss a few splatters. I know I added it with the gouache, but I do like to add my Posca pen. And then, what am I looking for? Oh yes, just going to add my little bird from New Beginnings. Let's take the bird from New Beginnings, the new bird. So we take our VersaFine Clair Nocturne. Stamp that onto our piece of card. Doesn't take very long for my hands to get in a right mess. I think that's texture paste. Yep, I always get texture paste all over the place. So I'll cut our little bird out, and again I'm going to leave a little bit of a white border, and this time I'm remembering to cut out the right way, because if I cut out most of the legs while everything's intact, in the card, it is far easier. There we go. Much easier. Just give that. Little white border just to make it pop against our background. There we go. And just make sure, if like me you're going to touch that black ink, that you give that a little bit of a blot, just so that you don't smudge that. Don't think I've got my white pen down here. Let's grab that white pen. So just adding a few touches of the white. I just want to add that there. Now, if I'd left the texture paste wet and not sort of dried it off, I could have sort of just squashed the bird a little bit into the texture paste, but I haven't, so we need to dry. We need to add glue, not we need to dry. There we go. Let's just move this out of the way. And that is your journal page completed. We've got some shimmer on there, but it's not too overpowering. And we've got those beautiful colours on the florals, some texture from the texture paste, and our little bird. So let's just have a look at the let's place this on here. If we have a look at the black card, that shimmer, fantastic. That green is lovely, the twisted citron on the black, really nice. And if you wanted to, oh, come here, Tracy. Let's take this off. You can even, so like I'll go from one tangent to another, but you can just take your stencils, any stencils. Actually, we should have, where are we? We should have left that. We should have pressed that down, actually, because when you're doing it properly, I'm just doing it just as a test. Obviously, mask off the rest of your card when you're spritzing, if you don't want your spritz anywhere else. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to do it in two areas. Come on. So I'm just going to do that in two areas. I'm not going to mask off the top, just to, obviously we can spritz through our stencils. We can then add the colour on top, like so. And then we can add a little bit, you know what I didn't do? Remember to shake them. That's better. So you can use, obviously you would mask off this top area. So let's just take, because if you mask off, obviously then you're not going to end up with your shimmer all over your card. We're just playing. So we can lift that up and you can use like so. Let me just move this. See, it looks lovely when it's spritzed through, but also then if we just take this copy of paper, you then take your stencil let's grab that kitchen roll that isn't very absorbent. You can place that down. This is nothing to do with the project we're doing. But hey ho. Excuse me. I just wanted to show you some things, that's all. But obviously if you do this on your card, you then end up with a stencil covered in everything. Right, okay. So you can also use the waste. So obviously this is still very runny, but you've got the shimmer in there. Let's just give that a little bit of a dry. Doesn't matter how much mess we make. Let's just give that a dry. Just so we can see that. Just so we can lift it up and not, but you can see the shimmer in that. Don't get too close, Tracy, because your camera can't. So when that's dry, it'll be a lovely full shimmer. You can also, where you don't want areas, just blot. There we go. So it works beautifully through your stencils, and that's just on copier paper. Look at the shimmer. Just love them, absolutely love them. I just think they are gorgeous. Anyway, after all my faffing, the idea was that we were doing this journal page. So I hope you've enjoyed our little bit of creative time together. I hope you'll give that a little bit of a try. And I shall see you all soon. Have a lovely weekend. Love to all. Bye for now.